The podcast begins by discussing Joe Biden's current political troubles and the growing calls for him to step aside as the Democratic nominee for the 2024 presidential election. Ben Shapiro notes that Biden is facing significant challenges, including poor poll numbers and concerns about his age and cognitive abilities. Despite these issues, Biden has insisted that he will remain in the race, causing frustration among some Democrats who fear he may lose to Donald Trump in the general election. Shapiro cites recent polling data showing Trump leading Biden in several key swing states, including Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. He also mentions that the Cook Political Report has moved several states in the Republican direction, indicating a shift in momentum towards Trump. The host argues that Trump's recent absence from the public eye may be contributing to his improved poll numbers, as voters focus more on Biden's perceived weaknesses. A significant portion of the podcast is devoted to discussing concerns about Biden's health and cognitive abilities. Shapiro references a recent NATO conference where Biden appeared to get lost on stage, suggesting that such incidents are becoming more frequent and noticeable. He also mentions a specialist on Parkinson's disease, Dr. Tom Pitts, who appeared on NBC News and stated that based on his visual assessment, it would be almost impossible to miss that Biden is suffering from some stage of Parkinson's. The host argues that Biden's cognitive decline is likely to worsen over time, presenting an ongoing challenge for his campaign and potential presidency. He notes that even some Democrats are privately expressing concerns about Biden's ability to serve effectively, though many are reluctant to publicly call for him to step aside. Shapiro discusses the dilemma facing the Democratic Party, as many members are torn between supporting Biden and seeking an alternative candidate. He cites reports of frustrated lawmakers struggling to find a path forward, with some calling for Biden to step aside, while others continue to support him publicly. The host suggests that the party is going through the 5 stages of grief in dealing with Biden's candidacy, moving from denial to anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. The podcast mentions that some Democrats are considering potential alternatives to Biden, such as Vice President Kamala Harris or other prominent party figures. However, Shapiro argues that polling data shows Biden still performing better against Trump than many of these alternatives, further complicating the party's decision-making process. Shapiro highlights the growing criticism of Biden from mainstream media outlets, including the New York Times editorial board calling for him to step aside. He notes that many journalists and commentators who previously supported Biden are now expressing concerns about his fitness for office and ability to win in 2024. The host suggests that this shift in media coverage is partly due to frustration over Biden's recent debate performance and the perception that his campaign has been less than forthcoming about his health issues. The podcast also touches on the role of social media and advertising in shaping public opinion about Biden and other political figures. Shapiro mentions his own testimony before the House Judiciary Committee on the topic of legacy media's continued dominance in advertising market share despite low trust ratings among the public. As discussions about Biden's political future continue, the podcast explores the potential role of Vice President Kamala Harris in the 2024 election and beyond. Shapiro notes that some Democrats view Harris as a possible replacement for Biden, either as the nominee or as president if Biden were to step down or become incapacitated. However, he also points out that Harris faces her own challenges, including low approval ratings and questions about her political skills. The podcast discusses the role of First Lady Jill Biden in the current political landscape, suggesting that she has significant influence over the president and his decision-making. Shapiro plays a clip of Jill Biden responding to questions about her husband's candidacy and mentions a report about a special musical fanfare composed for her use at official events. He implies that Jill Biden may be pushing for her husband to remain in the race despite concerns about his health and electability. Shapiro addresses recent Democratic efforts to focus attention on Project 2025, a conservative initiative led by the Heritage Foundation to prepare for a potential Republican administration in 2025. He explains that the project involves policy recommendations, personnel databases, and training programs for conservative appointees. However, the host argues that Democrats' attempts to use this as a campaign issue are likely to be ineffective, noting that even Donald Trump has distanced himself from the project. The podcast concludes with a discussion of the ongoing NATO summit in Washington, D.C., and the challenges facing the alliance in light of Biden's perceived weaknesses. Shapiro cites concerns from NATO officials and foreign policy experts about Biden's ability to lead effectively, particularly in the face of Russian aggression in Ukraine and other global threats. He suggests that these doubts about American leadership could embolden adversaries and create additional challenges for U.S. foreign policy. Overall, the podcast paints a picture of a Democratic Party and administration in crisis, grappling with the political and practical implications of an aging president whose fitness for office is increasingly questioned. Shapiro argues that the situation presents significant challenges for Democrats heading into the 2024 election and could have far-reaching consequences for American politics and global affairs.